What's up, everyone? So, for the first day of October, I would really love to review Psycho. With this being the first time that I see this film sober, I've seen this under the influence of marijuana and didn't really care for it. And I feel bad for saying that, but I didn't like it then. So, have my opinions changed on this film? Maybe, maybe not. Find out. So, Psycho is a 1960 slasher film directed by Alfred Hitchcock and stars Anthony Perkins, Jeanette Lee, Vera Miles, and John Gavin. A Phoenix secretary embezzles $40,000 from her employer's client, goes on the run, and checks into a remote motel run by a young man under the domination of his mother. You know what? We're going to switch this up this time. I usually do my positives first and then negatives last, but I'm going to go with my negatives first because why not? So, starting off with my negatives, the story is a fine one up until Crane's death. I didn't really care for it afterwards. I didn't mind the story until afterwards because I feel like it went downhill from there, and the characters involved after that, I did not really give a shit about. Also, to me, the private investigator's death in this film was very cheesy. Like, you have such an iconic kill, about 40, 50 minutes into the film. And then you have this private investigator's death in this. It was nothing compared to that. And I don't know, it just looked very fake. The way that he fell down the stairs just looked wrong in a sense. It just looked like he was stepping back to his death. I'm like, if he's supposed to be falling, why does he look like he's like that but walking backwards? It didn't make any bit of sense to me. I also feel like this movie drags a bit. Like I said, the story is fine up until Crane's death, but even then, it takes about 40, 50 minutes to get to what we want to see. 30 to 50, somewhere in there, to see Norman Bates. That's all I wanted to see. And also, this film doesn't have enough kills. There's only 2 kills in this film. There almost was a third, but I don't want to sound like I'm trashing this film because I'm not. Do I enjoy it as much as everybody else? No. But there are positives to this film. I think Jeanette Lee is a very, very great main character. She does wrong at the beginning of the film, but you can't help to watch her because she has a certain presence about her that most actresses in that time didn't have. The famous shower scene is iconic as hell, and I've seen it multiple times before I even saw this movie for the first time. Today was the first time I actually got to see this film, so it does make me think, like, what audiences thought of that death in 1960. That would have been something to see. Like, being in the movie theater, seeing that with a crowd of people, that would have been a sight to see, really. There's some great camera work in this film. Like, there's certain shots where they pan over to a certain character, and it just makes you think how they did that in 1960, because it feels very modern with the camera angles that they do in this film. Also, I think Anthony Perkins is a very believable, fine, charming man at the beginning of this film, and then later on he just turned into this haunting presence that when you see his facial features and his mannerisms, it scares you. Also, the last 10-15 minutes of this film, I cannot get enough of. It was probably my favorite part of this whole film, is the last 10-15 minutes, which sucks because the movie before that, it's alright. I'm not the biggest fan of this film, but I do love, when Crane's sister is down in this fruit cellar, and then she sees Norma Bates, and she's like, Mrs. Bates. She touches Norma Bates, turns around, and it's the corpse of Norman Bates. And I thought that was, even 6 years later, that holds up pretty well because that scared me. And I've seen clips of that before that scared me, and even then it just gives me the creeps. And then seeing Norman coming out, or seeing Norman come out with a knife as Norma Bates, and he says, I am Norma Bates, about to kill Crane's sister, and then Sam Loomis comes in, does his thing, and which I would have loved to have seen Crane's sister and Sam die. I mean, I hate to say that, but I just didn't really care for their characters, and this film didn't have enough kills as is, but we still have a little bit more positives to go. I love hearing the detective talk about Norman and Norma. Norma being Norman's other half. I love the sentence where it's like, sometimes it's never always Norman, but sometimes it's always Norma, something like that. And I thought that was a pretty smart line. I didn't say it right, but we know which line it is. It's pretty smart. And then afterwards, you know, when Norman asked, or Norma, because he's Norma right now, when Norma asked for a coat, and then it just pans over to Norman, and, you know, Norma has the whole speech about, I wouldn't even hurt this fly in front of me. They'll see that whole speech was something else to watch. And then seeing Anthony Perkins smile at the end just creeps me out, but it's not my favorite look that he gives. I love when Sam Loomis comes to the hotel after the private investigator hasn't called, and he's calling out the private investigator's name, and you see Anthony Perkins' character Norman Bates down at the swamp, and he just looks at the camera, just looks at it, and the way he looks scares the living shit out of me. You know, it may last 5-10 seconds, but seeing that, I definitely do not want to be in the same room as Norman Bates after seeing that look. It scared me, especially with the black and white added to it. That was scary. But also talking about the end of the film, you know, after that smirk, and then you see Crane's car being pulled out of the swamp. I loved how they did that. You know, you see that, and it says the end, and it has that cool animation, I guess. That was pretty cool. With all that being said, I don't enjoy Psycho as much as other people do. I'm more of a Psycho 2 fan. I haven't seen that in years, but I remember loving it. But so far, I love Psycho 2 more than Psycho itself. Probably get a lot of hate for that, but I'm going to give Psycho a 7.5 out of 10. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It'd be highly appreciated. And peace.